Hi, I'm John Hicks. I'm the editor of Official Xbox Magazine. I'm joined by Edwin M. Sowell, deputy editor.
Hello.
And, hello. The new Xbox has just been announced, and we have some thoughts on it. So many thoughts.
We have.
And I am really excited. Actually, I was a bit apprehensive about all the rumours kind of swirling around and that sort of stuff. And there was lots of concern about it always being online. That sort of stuff. Now we've seen, obviously, it's always online. It's kind of built for online, which is sort of subtly different. So if you're not connected, it doesn't just instantly fall over and die. And the sort of the stuff that enables is actually really exciting. The kind of there's a few things that I've seen that I'm still under embargo on, but the kind of the broad strokes are because because it's got the sort of the back end, this like infinite computing power to draw on. There's all this extra stuff it can do, and the kind of the potential for what that could do for gaming, I think, is really exciting.
And what do we know at this point about the kind of the practicalities of how it will work? I mean, will it be that you start up and the Xbox will immediately connect to the internet, or will it like prompt you later or something? I guess it's all a bit too early to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still a little bit fuzzy on that stuff, but basically speaking, it's like the comparison is like iPad or iPhone or something like that. When you can use an iPad or a tablet off when it's offline, and that's all fine, but it's not till it connects that suddenly all kind of Twitter notifications start rolling in and all the apps wake up and Game Center and all that kind of stuff. So. I think the idea it's very much like with my 360. I've got an Xbox Live Gold account. I leave it signed in. When I turn it on, it says, "Oh, here's your friends. Here's what's been added." All that kind of stuff. Only on the new one, it's just more sort of built for that. And I think I've been talking to Microsoft about it, and it's that sort of sense of this is where things are going. Because the comparison is the original Xbox had a network port in the back of it, which was considered a bit flashy. Xbox 360, it had kind of rudimentary Xbox Live that's kind of expanded. Here, it's kind of looking 10 years down the road, and they were very specific about this being like consoles have to last 10 years now. So they're thinking, all right, what's the world going to be like in 10 years' time? And you know what? We're going to be connected to the internet. We're going to be talking to each other a lot. We're going to be doing lots of things simultaneously, and this console's sort of designed for that. And I think, and that's kind of what's got me over my kind of initial apprehension about the whole always online thing, because that is a concern. We've seen with most damningly the SimCity launch on PC, where that was always online in a way that when the servers went down, the whole thing goes down. It was just a horrible experience for everybody. And
you did them a huge favour, didn't they?
Yeah. And Microsoft has been very clear, like, no, it's not going to be like that. Like, it's we're kind of building this device in the expectation it's going to be online, but it's not going to just drop dead if you're not. And then when you see the sort of stuff it can do, and you start thinking, and it's like there is literally infinite computing power available to games now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that can...
that's the kind of like 1,000 yards down. You think, holy shit! There's just. There's so much stuff that you can do. And obviously, the box itself is, exponentially more powerful than the 360 was. I think it's roughly 8 times, but I forget. But so the actual box is extraordinarily capable anyway. But then it's got all this sort of back end stuff you can do, and I've been talking again, sort of under embargo, so I can't go into too much detail. But I'm talking to developers about how that works, and because obviously. There are varying shades of online, right? Like some people have got very bad connection, like me. I don't have a great one. Some people have got kind of gold-plated billion megabit kind of stuff. And I'm talking to developers about how it's not just like everything has to be passed through this gushing fact pipe back to the internet. It's all about thinking cleverly about how you can pass like quite the kind of the small. Less twitchy stuff back and have that kind of handled by the cloud, and then passing it back. So there's as long as you're smart about which bits of the program you kind of hand off, you can actually get loads of. Basically, you can use all the power of the cloud, and you're freeing up the actual console itself to do more stuff with what's there. And it's really. like having thought about it and been talking to people, I have developed this sort of like messianic kind of, oh my god, I see it now, and it's once you actually kind of start talking to people about it, you suddenly see why Microsoft's done it. Like you suddenly twig that the idea of just having this box under the TV that just plays silver discs is just really anachronistic, and clearly that's not going to be how the world is in 10 years' time. So they've got this kind of eye on, okay, what's going to work in the future, and this is absolutely it, I think.
I was going to say, I mean, it must be a relief to people to hear that actually the online stuff is not just about protecting copyright, which I think is the assumption about a lot of always online games. It's to block out pre-owned and it's to stop pirates. But actually this is them allowing the computation to happen remotely as well as on the hardware itself. And I guess that's, when we start hearing more about the games, that's when that will start to get particularly exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, and I mean, the whole kind of pre-owned thing, they were quite, talking to Microsoft, they're quite explicit about that. Like, yes, pre-owned will still be a thing. I mean, I think it's going to be the case that the games publishers, I mean, I guess it's possible that games publishers could put that sort of stuff in there, but like Microsoft is not, as I understand it, is not interested in enforcing that. Like, they just want people to use the platform, and you know, they were very like, yes, people like pre-owned games, we're not going to get in their way, kind of stuff. And I mean, and I guess we'll have to see. Obviously, you know, it's just been the announcement. They're talking more about the hardware than the games. I think the really exciting game stuff is. I mean, I mean, we've shown some good games, but I think it's going to really go mad games-wise at E3. I've heard some quite exciting stuff about what's coming up there, so that's going to be the big push. But and it's going to be particularly with this, you know, with any piece of new technology. It's all about the software, and it's all about how the games use this platform. And I think because of this kind of cloud backend, and Kinect, we haven't talked about Kinect yet, but the sort of the stuff it can do is so novel, and this isn't like last console generation where you can go, oh look, we've got, you know, better lighting here, or we've got higher resolution textures, or, you know, more polygons or something like that. I mean, it will have all of those things, but you won't really notice it. It's not that sort of great leap forward. It's more about building like smarter, more reactive games that can do actually new things rather than doing like old things only shinier. And the sort of stuff that people come up with, I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how that pans out. And I think E3 is going to be really exciting, seeing what people have done with the platform.
It's good to know that games are kind of the focus. Cause obviously, I mean, there is the cynicism about Microsoft is that there was all about entertainment now and broad, natural user interface functions, and obviously there is that aspect. And what's your take on?
Oh yeah, and that is the aspect. And obviously, that's, you know, they've talked about that. You know, this is a connected entertainment device, and you know the way it works. You know, it's kind of designed to work with other entertainment things, and they've got, you know, Microsoft's got its own sort of, you know, TV-esque entertainment studio in LA now. You know, that's all happening, and there's absolutely an entertainment focus, and that's also, you know, the way the future is going. But that's just part of the strands. Like you talk to, I was talking to Aaron Greenberg, and he was saying yes, it's games, and so, you know, they're very aware as a company, Microsoft, that, you know, the Xbox brand is built on video games and kind of, you know, proper video games, you know, like Halo or Elder Scrolls or whatever, and they're not planning on moving away from that. But it's about making this new box that can actually do more and kind of plug into the other stuff that you do and the other stuff that you like. So I mean, yes, there's an entertainment focus, but it's not at the expense of the gaming coverage.
With the controller, what's changed there, and what's going on with the new Kinect?
The controller has changed slightly. It was really interesting talking to the guys who developed it, actually. They were saying like they kind of looked at making all sorts of radical changes to it, like putting like, you know, touch pads and speakers and radical redesigns and that kind of stuff. But they couldn't come up with a way that actually did incorporate any of those things in the way that actually made it any better. They're talking about things like, well, you know, they've got these little speakers, but you can't really hear it over like the proper sound of the game. And if you have a screen, you're always looking up and down at it, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that they kind of got to the point where, like, you know what, this is a really good controller. It's extraordinarily popular. Like, even I think the great moment for the Xbox controller was that when like Nintendo brought out an almost identical version of it for Wii U. that's when Nintendo
Strange
are copying your
coincidence,
controller,
wasn't it?
copying your controller design. Like you're onto something good there. So the update is, it's a slightly smoother design. They've kind of, it doesn't have visible screw holes in it. They kind of built the batteries into it now. Although it still just takes normal batteries, but they're just kind of slightly more artfully hidden. And it's got like rumble in the triggers now, which that's the kind of like the big new thing. And it's actually quite nice. I mean, I've only used it on kind of little product like kind of demos, like kind of not actual functioning games, but more kind of like how to go on it. It's like, well, here's how it would work in a shooter, and here's how it would work if you're driving a car, and that sort of stuff. And it's just that little extra level of kind of tactile feedback, so that if you're like when you're driving, when you're in a car. And you kind of you put your foot down, you pull the right trigger, and you can sort of feel like the engine feedback comes back through the trigger in the same way that it would if you were driving in real life or controlling a helicopter. That was another demo, so you can kind of give a slightly better sense of how the thing's moving through the air, and it's just a really nice additive thing. Like it's actually something that you think, games are definitely going to use this and in a useful and interesting way, and it's not going to affect how I play games. Like it's not gonna, so often when people try and redesign controllers, they kind of like bolt in extra stuff that kind of forces you to use the controller in a different way.
Yes.
And I think the great sort of breakthrough in this one is that Xbox games know how to use a controller. They're perfectly happy with this one. Let's not force it so you've got to wave it around or look up and down or hold it up to your ear or anything like that. No, you can. It's just
unless you want to.
Well,
it's a free world.
Yes, well, you can do all that stuff, and obviously, the new Kinect. That's they've sort of the way that the Kinect senses things now means actually if you do want to start controlling games by waving your controller around, it's absolutely cool with that, but it's done through Kinect rather than the controller itself. And of course, if you don't want to use Kinect, you don't have to, although it is there.
So what's the skinny on the new Kinect then?
New Kinect is I think the elevator pitch is it really, really works now. It's so much better than the old one. Obviously it's included with every console, which is obviously significant because obviously no one could. Previously we tend to have games that were designed exclusively for Kinect, and some of them were fine, and some of them were sort of hastily ported over from the Wii, and they weren't fine at all. And then there were other games where they kind of had this sort of it was a sort of accessory to control the stuff, which in some cases was done quite nicely. I thought Skyrim did it quite well, and Forza and Mass Effect. That was all fine, but it was all kind of like an optional thing for the people who had Kinect. Like now, because it ships with every single console, developers can go, okay, it's definitely there, and the ability of the device is like startlingly superior to what it was previously. So it can see in the dark. It can like detect like facial features and fingers, and it doesn't need as much space because it's got like a kind of wider viewing angle. So you need. I mean, it's not quite use it in the broom cupboard level, but it requires a lot less space than the old one did, and the level of sensory perception it has is again, it's really exciting. It's a bit tricky because obviously when Kinect came out, you kind of I personally got quite worked up about the potential of what you could do with it, and then because Kinect is a little bit limited and it needs some space, and it was a bit weird about light levels and that kind of stuff, so it never quite lived up to the sort of holodeck visions that we kind of had for it in the beginning. Like this, the new one seems to have addressed the vast majority of those. Like it doesn't, because it uses this the new sensor it's got in it. Like it doesn't need any light at all. So it will work in pitch darkness, and it will see you in alarming levels of detail in pitch darkness.
It's when I rub all over, basically, is what it is.
And it can, it can detect where, it can detect more people, and it can detect who's talking out of those people, and it can kind of like target. It's going to get this new microphone array where it can kind of target individual. It can kind of isolate your voice out of the background noise and that sort of stuff. I think, and again, it will depend on the software. You need. We'll need to see how we'll need people to develop games that use it. But for instance, and I have been going on about this for a bit, you could make an astonishing horror game with the new Kinect, like a proper mess you up horror game where it knows exactly what you're doing. Like it sees, like the system sees you as you play, and it sees what you're doing, and it sees the expression on your face, and it could really start.
Or even the expression on your face.
Broadly, yeah, to a degree, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can think of a number of ramifications for such things.
And it's just Kojima, obviously, the Metal Gear series has always been very good at kind of messing with you and kind of breaking the fourth wall.
Oh, he'd have an absolute ball with this,
so I am really looking forward to what he can do with it. So so it's again, it's a really interesting piece of technology, and I think it's I'm again really looking forward to see what people do with it.
What about kind of like apps for the new Xbox and how they kind of relate to the games? I mean, obviously Xbox 360 is pretty big on apps nowadays, but presumably that's going to go up a whole other level.
Oh, absolutely, and I think as they've shown, the way that they've kind of built the new box is there's a sort of a section of the memory that you run games in, and that's fine, and then there's a separate bit that it can kind of run apps in simultaneously. So where at the moment, because kind of apps have got big on the Xbox, and apps have got big in the world, right? In smartphones and tablets and all that kind of stuff. So we're all kind of used to them. But now you can run in the 360, like when they put that Twitter app on 360, you basically had to like leave the game and load into the Twitter app because there was one space that everything had to load in, and you couldn't really do it. You couldn't really do both simultaneously. With the new one, you can run a game and you can run the app at the same time. And then there's all sorts of sort of interesting ways that things like opens up. I mean, firstly, like you just instantly switch between one. Like big focus for them was like getting rid of that kind of spinning wheel when things like on 360 at the moment. Like if you want to like read a message from somebody that they've sent you during a game, you have to bring up the guide menu. That takes a little while. You have to go in and open the thing. That takes a little while. If you want to respond to the message, that takes a little while. It's a really kind of long drawn out process. Like here, it's just instant. Like you can just go straight from game to dashboard, or I'm not entirely sure what they were calling it, but you can go from back and forth instantly. The kind of Skype integration is really smart, so that means that you can be playing a game or watching TV or something like that, and it sort of like Skype will just pop up with a video call just like that, and it won't. It won't like cause the game to stop running because it's running on a separate bit of the console. And again, it's going to be how people use that which will make it really exciting. But the potential there is great because at the moment I play 360 and I tend to when in the same way that I play 360, I watch TV. Whenever I'm sat on a sofa looking at the television screen, whatever purpose, I've usually got the phone out or tablet out, something like that, kind of look up and down. That kind of stuff. Like now, the kind of 360 is kind of built for that sort of thing. Only you can have it on TV simultaneously. So there's the potential to have like the game and the video chat thing there, or game and sports ticker, or Twitter feed, all that sort of stuff. Like it can do all that, sort of built for that. Sense of permanent distraction which we live today.
It does. Obviously nowadays with phones you have that kind of constant flow between different functions and apps, and we're kind of used to that on phones. I guess we're less used to that on consoles because obviously we think of them as traditionally just they do the one thing. But it sounds like something that would actually work. Well, clearly there's already a need for it because, as you say, Xbox 360 is there with all these functions, and they could do with speeding up.
Yeah.
I suppose, just in reference to kind of looking down, looking up, what about smart glass? Presumably that's still a big part of the whole.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something. I was surprised that I've been talking to Microsoft about it. Like I didn't realise it was as popular as it is, but like it's apparently they've got the usage numbers. Like it's massively popular. They kind of. I think that there's all sorts of things in the pipeline for it. I'm not quite sure what's announced, what's not at this point, but. It's going to be...
How much will you pay me to, get him in a headlock and just force these truths out of him? He knows things.
So that's the immediate reaction to the news that's coming out today. There's going to be a load more information in the new issue of OXM, which is on sale on the 11th of June. We've spoken to loads of guys at Microsoft about the new console and about new games coming out for it. You should definitely check that out. We're also going to have more coverage on oxm.co.uk, so visit that too.